of all, I wanted to say thanks for everybody who made time to join us this morning. If I have only talked to you on the phone or via email, I am Haley. I work at NMDFA in the infrastructure division. I'm one of the members that make up the New Mexico Match Fund team. As I kind of previewed to you all in the email to invite you to this meeting, we've been working on building out a new grant application process for the New Mexico Match Fund in a system that the state's adopted as a grants management system called Amplifund. And we wanted to share that with a group of stakeholders before we end up launching the application live and doing larger scale user training on how to submit applications in the new system. So anyway, you are all invited here today because you have interacted with this process either once or multiple times. And we wanted to engage you in this little preview of submitting an application into Amplifund before we go ahead and launch it publicly, just to make sure any other feedback you all have can get incorporated into the system. So with that said, I think I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, who is our team partner here at Amplifund, who's been helping us get all of this set up, to start walking us through this training. And I think, Jennifer, it's your preference to have everybody save their questions for the end. Is that correct? Yeah,
Yes.
I'll monitor the chat box in case anything comes up that's super time sensitive, but in general, save questions to the end if you can, okay? Awesome. Off to you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Haley. All right, welcome everyone. So we're going to do a training today on how to submit an application through Amplifund. So at the end of this training, you should understand how you can apply for the New Mexico Match Fund in any of the three programs that they have: the project implementation, the matching grant, or the federal compliance. We're going to use the project implementation as an example today. As Haley said, how we're going to run the training today is to hold questions for the end. I will also ask you to stay on mute until we reach that question and answer portion of the training. You can definitely use the chat to ask questions as you go along. And then when we reach that question and answer portion, feel free to unmute and ask your question aloud. Okay, so we're first going to start today with learning how to get into the system for the first time, then how to submit an application, and then at the end we'll cover what the communication between yourself and the state will look like regarding their decision of your application. So we're going to start with how to register in Amplifund. So the first time that you come in to apply to a new opportunity through Amplifund, the state is going to provide you a link. And that link is going to take you to this page, which we call the Opportunity Details page. From this page, you're eventually going to hit the Apply button. When you hit that button, it's going to prompt you to log in. If it is your first time using Amplifund, when you get to this login screen, here on the left, you're going to see a prompt for an email and a password. You're going to go ahead and leave those blank and click register at the bottom in the green button. That's going to take you to a new account form where you're going to enter your email address, create a password, and your contact information. One thing to keep in mind about your Amplifund account with the state is that it is an account for your organization. So if you work for an organization and there's multiple users who need to interact with the application, you're going to have one organizational account, and then each of you will be a user under that account. The first person to register is setting up the account for the organization, and then from there, you can add users as needed. Once you've registered, each time you come into Amplifund, you're going to just be able to log in with that email and that password that you've created, and then clicking login. If you, for some reason, need to reset your password or you've forgotten your password, go ahead and click that Forgot Your Password option under the boxes. That's going to send a password reset link, and that link will send from an email that is no-reply@gotomygrants.com. any system communications from Amplifund are going to come from this email. So I would highly recommend that you add it as a safe sender to your email contacts so that it doesn't go into your junk mail. And then this is a illustration of what that password reset email will look like when you receive it. So that's how we get into the application. From here, we're going to talk about how to actually apply. So again, the state will provide you a link and you will follow that link to the program or the funding opportunity for which you want to apply. In this case, we are applying for the project implementation grant. Where you land is called opportunity details. So this is going to give you some basic information about what you're applying for. As you can see, there's a description, there's a contact here that you can reach out to. There's other detailed information around the application itself, including some links to DFA's website, which is going to have more detailed information on the programs. From this point, I can download a copy of the whole application by clicking this download button if I want to preview it before I start applying. I can also click the help button, which is going to give me some technical help information, and we'll talk more about that in a minute here. When I'm ready to apply, I'm going to go ahead and click apply. If your organization has already started an application or has an application in progress, you will get this pop-up window here. And this is just letting you go back into an application that you've already began. If you want to start a new application, you're going to go ahead and click Start a New Application. The first thing that you'll see is project information. I also want to point out some basic navigation for the funding opportunities. Up at the top here, we have a timeline. You can see we started at opportunity details. We're now at project information, and that's denoted by the green circle. And then upcoming, I have application forms and a budget before I get to the final submission page. I can click on this timeline to move around throughout the application, or I can use the Save and Continue button to move forward. At project information, you're going to be asked some basic information around what you're applying for. So you're always going to have to give it an application name. You're going to have to specify for the state how much funds that you're requesting for your project implementation grant. And then there is a required match for project implementation. So if there's a match requirement, that's going to be specified here. And then you need to make sure that you also say how much match funding that you're planning to contribute. And it needs to be at least the minimum here. So that error message goes away. I'm also going to be asked to provide a primary contact for this application. And once I have this basic information filled in, all of the required fields as denoted by an asterisk, I'm going to be able to click Save. This is the point where I could leave the application and come back to it later. So you can save at any point now, even without all the required fields, once we have project information filled out. Once I'm done with a section of the application, I need to mark it as complete. This is going to tell the application that I'm completely done with this section and I'm ready to move on. So to move on, again, we can navigate via our timeline, or we can use the Save and Continue button to move forward. You'll notice that I now have a check mark in my timeline over project information. That's telling me that I marked it as complete and that section is ready to submit. Application forms is where the bulk of the applications are going to be that are similar to like the Microsoft Teams form that you're used to filling out. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the form name. And then here are all of the questions that I need to answer for this project implementation grant. It starts with a criteria, certification. I need to give detailed information about the entity that's applying. Say whether or not the state funding is going to be used statewide. If I click no, I need to say which counties I'm spending that funding in. I need to provide a phone number for the person who I can be contacted about this application. And if I have a fiscal agent, I need to identify who that is. At any point, I can save. So I get the success message every time I've saved. It is telling me that I've missed some required fields. That's okay. I can still save, leave, and come back into the application at this point. And then I'm going to just keep filling out the application. Since this relates to a federal grant that I've received, I also need to specify how much of the federal grant I received, the state matching funds that are required, and then the total project costs. And then at the end here, I'm being asked to upload my EO, Executive Order Audit Compliance. To upload a file into the application, you're going to click Choose File, and this will bring up your File Explorer. You can select the file or files that you need to upload. If I'm uploading one, I'm just going to click on it and click Open. If I need to upload multiple files, I'm going to click one file. If I'm in a Windows system, I'm going to hold Control on my keyboard, select the second or third file. When I have them all selected, I'm going to click Open. You'll see the file names appear in your application. That's how you know it was successful. You can delete any of these with the trash can icon, and you can choose other files if needed. And I'm going to save frequently as I fill this out. And when I'm completely done with my application form, I'm going to click Mark as Complete. If I've missed any fields, it's going to specify that for me, and then I'm going to look back for the red error here. So I do need to answer this fiscal agent question. Now I'm going to try to mark as complete again. I got the success message, so I can click Save and Continue to move forward with my application. Notice I've got the check mark now because I marked this section as complete. The project implementation grant also has a budget. Your budget is going to validate against what you entered in project information. So note here that I have a revenue budget. I have grant funding of $100,000 and non-grant funding of $2 million. This is populating from what I entered in the project information page in the award requested and the match fields. So if you get to the budget and your revenue budget doesn't look correct, know that you've made a mistake in project information. You need to come back here and edit it. And I'm using the timeline here to navigate between these two pages. So to complete the budget, the state has certain categories that they're asking how I'm going to spend this money that I've received from them. I've got personnel, fringe, travel, equipment, supplies, construction, consultants and contracts, indirect, and then subawards. What I need to do is decide which line items I should put into which categories. So if I have some dollars that are going towards a grant manager, I can create a line item under personnel by clicking the plus sign next to that category. I'm going to give that line item a name. And then I'm going to enter in the total cost for that line item. If part of this I'm going to contribute with my own dollars or with the federal dollars in this case, I'm going to click yes, and then I'm going to specify how much of this should come from the state's matching funds or the other funding that I've received. So you can see that this direct cost is the total cost, and then it's broken out grant funding and other funding that's being contributed. And the grant funding in this case is the state's New Mexico match fund that you're asking for. I also have to have a narrative with my budget line item. And then when I'm finished with that, I'm going to click Create. So notice that my expense budget is validating against my revenue budget, which comes from project information. I still have almost $2 million left to allocate in my expense budget to fully tie out my revenue budget. So I'm going to go ahead and create another line item. Maybe I have some subawards with this grant, and you can make these line items as detailed as you need to. And I'm going to say that all of this is my match. So this is my grant that I've received from the feds that I'm asking for this matching grant for. I could create one line item for all of my subawards, or maybe I want a line item for each of my subaward. It's kind of your choice on how you set up the budget. So I would keep building this out. I can have multiple line items per category. So in personnel, maybe I have also an assistant who's working on this grant. And this is all coming from the New Mexico Match Fund grant. So I'm going to leave this at non-grant funded. And click Create. And as I make these line items, my expense budget is validating against my total revenue budget. When I have it balanced, the total budget cost is going to be 0. That means that I've put the amount of grant funding in my expense budget that was in my revenue budget coming from project information. And I've allocated all of my non-grant funding in my expense budget to totally tie out to what I entered in that project information. You can save at any point as you're building out the budget and come back to it later. When you have it balanced where your total overall budget cost equals 0, you can mark it as complete. And then again, I can navigate with my timeline, or I can click Save and Continue. So at this point, I'm getting ready to submit my application. Note that I have green circles with check marks across my whole timeline. That tells me that I've got everything ready and entered and I'm ready to submit. I can download a copy of my whole application at this point to review by clicking this review button. Maybe I need to vet this internally before I hit the submit button. So I can download that application. It's going to download as a zip file. And that zip file is going to contain your application itself and then any uploads that you attached, as well as a spreadsheet of the budget that you entered. When I am ready to submit this application, I am going to click the submit button. You'll get the success message on screen. That's how you know the submission was successful. You will also receive an email from that no-reply at gotomygrants.com telling you that you've submitted an application. So if neither of those things happened, you haven't successfully submitted it. This is a copy of that email that you're going to get. It's going to be have your application name, the funder, which would be the state of New Mexico, Department of Finance Administration, and then it's going to be time-stamped. So this email and that on-screen message are your indications that you have successfully submitted an application. You can always log back into Amplifund and see your submitted applications. You can also download a copy of that submitted application. I can do it directly from this screen, and I could also do it if I logged back in. If I click this download, I'm going to get that same zip file, only this time the application is going to have the submission date imprinted on it. So that's the process of how you submit the application. As soon as you've submitted it to the state, they also receive an email notification, and they're going to start their review of your application. At different points throughout the review process, the state is going to communicate with you via Amplifund. The first thing that may happen is if they need additional information from you, they will reopen your application and ask you to go in and correct something. You will get an email from no-reply at gotomygrants.com if your application has been reopened. There's going to be a link in the email, this gotomygrants.com, that's going to take you to your application where you can make those edits, go through that process that we just did, and resubmit it. Eventually, you're going to get an application decision from the state on whether they approve or don't approve your application. Hopefully, your applications are all approved and you'll get this approval message, which is going to state that the application you submitted to the State of New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration for the project implementation match grant opportunity now has an application status of approved. If your application is not approved, if maybe you don't qualify for whatever reason, you'll get this rejection message. It will say the same thing, the state for the project implementation match fund grant for your specific application now has a status of rejected. So all of that communication is going to be automated and it's going to come through that no-reply at gotomygrants.com email address. I want to briefly cover with you the two other match fund opportunities that you could apply for. We looked at the project implementation, which is probably the most complicated of the three. Next, let's look at the matching grant application. So same setup here. I land on the opportunity details. I click apply. I choose whether to continue with an application I've already started or start a new one. You'll note that this does not have a budget, so I just need to complete project information and then my application forms. There'll be some similar questions here, some slightly different questions. Again, these parallel the questions that you're already used to seeing for the match grant. There is a table to fill out in this one as well, and then some document uploads. You may also be interested in the federal compliance offset grant. This one is like the matching grant. It does not have a budget. You just need to fill out project information and then the application form. So we have some eligibility and criteria information, some information about your entity, and then information about how you're funding, and then documentation to upload. So all three of these are similar. They should be very used to what you, it's very similar and to what you're doing today. As you're going through all three of these applications, you may need some technical assistance. It's the first time you're using a system. So I want to kind of cover how you can get that technical assistance. You can reach out to Amplifund customer support in a couple of different ways. The first is that you can submit a ticket. So you can email support@amplifund.zendesk.com. You can call the help desk. It's manned from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Fridays, excluding any holidays. Or you can visit the support portal itself. Now, this support portal is at amplifund.zendesk.com, and it's going to have a lot of guidance for you in terms of submitting an application. So it will look like this. There's a button down here to submit a ticket as well. So if you don't want to email, you can click this. It's going to go to the same place. And then I would direct you to this recipient and applicant training. So there's some videos here that you can watch on how to register, how to navigate through the portal, how to complete an application. Most of these are pretty short, under 5 minutes. There's a mix of videos and user guides that you can follow. In the slide deck that's going to be provided to you as follow-up today, there is a reference section. And a lot of these helpful user guides are linked for you in the back of this slide deck as well. So at this point, we've covered how to log in for Amplifund the first time, how you're going to submit an application, and then customer support that you can access if you need technical assistance throughout that process. Are there any questions that you have? You can unmute at this point. You can raise your hand and then unmute, or you can put your question in the chat. So I will pause here and we'll see if anyone has any questions. Or Haley, if you, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Jeremias, Valencia County. I'm sorry if I missed it. I did have to step out for just a second, but would the award process, including the actual agreement, also be situated through Amplifund, or is this something that's going to come from DFA in the typical process?
Haley,
Yeah.
I'll let you answer that one.
So, once you're awarded a grant, and we're going to do another training on this, Hadamias, for those of you who already have received grants, but everything will be situated in an Amplifund, so any files that are associated with the grant will be uploaded to a document library in Amplifund. Like you saw, you get a system-generated email, so you'll still get an email from Match Fund that says, "Here's your award letter or your grant agreement." But actually, the grant agreements will go through Amplifund because it's all a signature process. So anyway, the only thing that anything that is a document related to the grant gets stored in Amplifund, and then pretty much all correspondences will be system-generated emails, or if it can't be, it'll be an email from us with an attachment like it has been in the past.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
The second question I had, Jennifer, was so the county, we did explore trying to have Amplifund as our grant management software. Unfortunately, it wasn't, there was just some conflicting issues because of our financial management system, just wasn't able to speak with Amplifund. But being that I already have an Amplifund account, is it going to be the same account, or will I have to do a new account for this particular process?
If you have an active Amplifund account, we can make sure that that account is merged with where DFA accesses it. So you could use your same login. You don't have to set up a new one.
Okay, and do I need to send an email or anything requesting that, or it should just be ready to go?
If you, Haley, I'm assuming you've got email addresses.
Yes. I can.
I can work directly with Haley on that then.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure it gets linked out to me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's a good call out. And if anyone's used Amplifund before, you do not need a new account for this. You can use your account that you already have. That's a great question. Let's see. Anna, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to clarify also too that in adopting Amplifund as our grants management system, we're not outsourcing anything to Amplifund. We're in the back end there setting up the applications and review processes and all that kind of stuff too. So it's the same old government, just hopefully a better user experience for submitting the applications and then for managing the grants also.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, the staffing for the New Mexico Match Fund isn't changing at all. It is still myself and Ethan at this time that'll be just using this system to help us manage it.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Feel free to use the chat as well.
Yeah, Jeanette, go
Um,
ahead.
yeah.
So I missed a couple of minutes of this. So are we going to use this to do our grant reporting as well?
Yes, and training's upcoming on that. We just
Oh,
wanted to
yay.
introduce you all to the system and
Oh, yay.
get a peek in this morning.
Yeah, your grant implementation, uh, the implementation grant application deal is awesome. I submitted the grant without this. And so I did a lot of research on, what goes into a budget for project management and all that. So this, kudos to you guys. That grant implementation grant application piece is awesome.
Thanks,
Right. What
Jeanette.
other?
We always appreciate you're such a cheerleader for our steps in making progress in grants. So thanks very much for hanging with us and
No
being part of
worries.
today's session too.
Yeah, I figure, you know what, we're in this together, and I'm just a little bitty consultant, but it's like, oh my gosh, when I can find a place or people that make this process easier, not just the applications, but the reporting. I'm all for it. So thank you so much for all the work you guys do.
Yeah, thank you, Jeanette. And we're hoping to get reporting and other like all the other kind of trainings we're going to put out. Like I said, we just wanted to gather a small group of stakeholders that have been highly engaged in this grant program so far this morning just to make sure that we were on the right track. And then but anticipate early like second week of January, we're going to
I
start
know.
scheduling out some other trainings on reporting and other application stuff.
Oh,
So
awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much.
Haley, Teramis again, just a quick question. Are you gonna publish this stuff like on your website as these trainings are completed? Will they be available?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah, we're going to record them so you can go back and watch them at any time. And then, like I said before, Ethan and I are always available too to help you walk through stuff if you want a more one-on-one approach. But we'll have live trainings and then they'll also be recorded and then they'll get on the Match Fund website.
awesome. Thank you.
Great questions. What other ones do we have?
Is everybody ready for Christmas?
Getting there, I think. How about you?
I was born ready, Jennifer.
All right, way to go. You're doing better than me. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, just a reminder, you can always access Amplifund support. Wait, I maybe have one in the chat. Oh, thank you, Tim. We appreciate you participating today as well. Haley, any final parting thoughts?
No, like I said, thanks for being part of our little small stakeholder engagement group today. We appreciate it. If you have any other feedback or questions, you can shoot me an email and I can answer them myself or get with Jennifer if we need to have a more comprehensive answer. But yeah, like I said, stay tuned for early January announcements about widespread training and broader trainings on Amplifund, both applications and reporting. And I think the only other thing to share is that we anticipate going live with these applications in January as well. And so that's when we'll switch away from Microsoft Forms into this system. All that's to say is that any award you currently have is going to get imported into the system, and we'll do a specific user training for folks who have awards that are getting imported. But we appreciate your participation, and we thank you for being key partners of the New Mexico Match Fund. And happy holidays to everybody. And I hope you all get a little bit of rest and downtime here in the next few weeks.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.